Super excited. And we're just going to get things rolling here since we have got, top of the hour coming in. Whoever else is joining in, we'll just welcome them to the call as we get going. But I just want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for showing up tonight. Thank you for coming and joining us. We are so excited to have you all here. And before we really get into things, I just want to take a second and say thank you so much to our most inspiring author, Amy Hardison, and Alan D. Thompson for his work and creating this amazing book for all of us to help elevate our being as individuals. This magnificent commitment that they have had to this creation for each and every one of us is so inspiring. So this book has continued to plant seeds not only in my own life, but for all of us and across the world. And the ripple effect that is happening is huge. And we just hope that it continues throughout, impacting lives across the world. So this book is amazing for anyone who is willing to read it about themselves and have a transformation. So I am super excited, and it's such a huge treat for each and every one of us this evening to be welcoming Kellen Flukiger to our book reading for chapter 5, Finding God. And I'm so excited for him to be here. And thank you so much for committing to this. And we're going to get ready to dive into this. But this is a co-created space with all of the Team Tuck members and each and every one of you. As we're here, take this to a deeper level. We ask you to experience this book of being about yourselves. So while we are working on reading through this, we want you to listen about yourself. We want you to read this book about yourself for our readers. And when it comes time to share, we want you to share about yourself and how it's impacted you. So as we get going, I would love to have you all just take a second to drop something into the chat. And one thing that I would like to know is, as we're talking about finding God today, I'd like to know if there's what's one thing that you did today to connect with God? So if you just want to drop it in the chat, I'd love to hear. Ooh, I see prayed with my wife. That's awesome. Dancing. Gurpreet, welcome back. Somebody made somebody smile. That's awesome. Breath work, meditation, singing, long talks, devotionals. These are amazing. Absolutely amazing. Connection calls. And now, what's one thing that you did, if you want to drop it in the chat, that you did to help somebody else find God?
Okay.
I see, listened. Yeah, that's awesome. Way of Mastery reading, big hugs, stretching hand of love. Amazing. Ken talked to 2 people today. These are awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Who we're being and how we're showing up is everything. So with that, I'm going to kick this over to Tanya, and I'm going to let her take it away, and we're going to get rolling. So everybody, let's go. Listen about you, read about you, share about you. Here we go.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Tonight is such a special night. We have Kellen Flukiger with us tonight, and what an honor it is to have him with us. And I would love to know who has their book with them. Who has their book tonight with them? Anybody? Anybody? I see several. All right. Okay. How about Daniel Aaron, would you like to read the back of the book for us tonight? Beautiful. Thank you. And how about Jeremy, Mr. Jeremy De La Garza? I see you there, sir. Would you like to read the first 2 pages? Excellent. Thank you so much. So what I would like to do is just to remind everyone that as we are reading the back of the book and the first 2 pages before you begin by Steve Hardison, if there is a particular question that stands out to you and you'd like to focus with an intention on something that you hear from the back of the book or the first 2 pages, and you'd like to drop it in the chat, please feel free to do that. If you don't want to drop it in the chat, but you still want to kind of set the intention, that's okay too. So we invite it all, and we invite you again to listen about you, read about you, and when it comes time to share, please share about you. And so at this time, I'd love to know, is there anyone new to the call? Is anyone's first time here? Ah, yes, Miss Sonia. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So happy that you're here tonight. Very good, very good. Anybody else? Would love to acknowledge you. All right. Well, thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much for being here. And I see Kathleen. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Laura, thank you. And Gurpreet. Wow. Thank you so much for all of you joining us tonight. So the flow of the call, we will go to Mr. Daniel Aaron reading the back of the book, and then it'll flow right into Mr. Jeremy De La Garza. And then right as soon as Jeremy De La Garza is done with reading the first 2 pages, then Mr. Kellen, it'll flow right to you, and you can flow right into your reading. When we're done with the readings, then we will come back around in the same order for sharing. And so again, I would love to remind, as a friendly reminder, really to be present to how this particular chapter has impacted you or created any sort of insight from the reading tonight. So at this time, I'd love to pass it on to Mr. Daniel for us to get started.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Liz. Thanks, everyone. Dear potential reader, as you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book imploring you to read it. I vetoed that. The only testimonial I am interested in is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. As you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who I am? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison.
Before you begin, all right, Before You Begin by Steve Hardison. I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend, Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. And it's not just a gift for me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, it's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being, and it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of the community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work that I do? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I could live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people of my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part about this book about you, is that it is endless. The story goes on, and it's written by your being. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison.
Chapter 5, Finding God. It was an unlikely place to find Steve Hardison. Seminary was a class for religious instruction for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was a non-credit, release time class held during the school day because of the high concentration of church members in Utah. It wasn't Steve's thing, but it was an easy class and all his friends were taking it. He sat toward the back with his feet kicked up on the chair in front of him. Lori Weeks, one of the cutest blondes in the senior class, sat behind him. Sometimes she pulled out her comb and combed his hair. It was like having his back rubbed. Steve was in total bliss. Somewhere at the front of the room, a religious guy was droning on, sounding like the adults in the Charlie Brown cartoons. One day, his teacher yanked Steve out of his reverie and out of the classroom. In the hall, Brother Fraser probed, "Steve, why are you here?" Steve pointed over at Lori. "Right there. And no homework. And I want one of those fancy graduation certificates." That's not why you come to seminary. You come to seminary to learn about God and Jesus Christ. Looking hard in Steve's eyes, Brother Fraser asked, "Steve, do you believe in God?" Tipping his chin up, Steve said, "Well, if there's a God, he hasn't been around my house much." After a minute, Brother Fraser said, "Steve, instead of coming into our class, why don't you go into my office and read the Book of Mormon? Find out for yourself if it's true. Find out if God is real." Steve's relationship with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was complicated. His grandparents were devout members. Steve had gone to church on and off throughout the years. It was the culture of his community. But Steve still smarted from being kicked out of his congregation's Boy Scout troop for punching a fellow scout. Steve made sure he attended enough church to qualify for playing on the church basketball team, but attendance wasn't the same as worship. During the most sacred moments of the Sunday service, Steve was crawling around in the rafters, having accessed the attic through a crawl space he discovered. When he fulfilled the duties given to 14 and 15-year-old boys to help prepare the sacrament, he used rusty water that had a bad taste and pushed the sacrament cups down extra hard so people had a hard time getting them out of the tray without spilling them. Every month, representatives of the church, called home teachers, came to check on the Hardison family. When they rang the doorbell, the family hit the floor so they couldn't be seen. It was easier to find alcohol in the fridge than scriptures in the house. In spite of all this, something in what Brother Fraser said, or in his way of saying it, or something Steve couldn't explain, cut through Steve's insolence. He accepted the invitation. Within weeks of immersing himself in Scripture, Steve began to have profound insights and personal revelations. He felt the Spirit. His mind was opened. His heart was softened. He cut his hair. He quit drinking. He started cleaning up his life. He began studying, directing his hallmark intensity and focus to the pursuit of religious knowledge. Steve's ecclesiastical leader, Bishop Doug Barris, noticed. He called Steve in for a visit. He started with some general chit-chat, then asked, "What are your goals for the future, Steve?" Steve had no vision for his future. The thought of college had not entered his mind, not once. He was floating. He was buying time. He was trying not to think about the future. When Steve didn't answer, Bishop Barris moved on. "What are your thoughts about a mission?" "A mission?" Serving a 2-year mission is expected of most Latter-day Saint boys when they turn 19, currently 18. It is a mark of devotion and a spiritual rite of passage. Boys who grow up in families active in the Mormon faith start thinking about missions early, even before they start grade school. They sing in Sunday school, "I hope they call me on a mission," when I have grown a foot or two. They put their quarters and nickels in piggy banks dedicated for mission funds. The topic had never been broached in Steve's family. Steve was gobsmacked. Bishop Barris again changed tack. He asked Steve to spend the next week thinking, praying, and making a list of all the things he needed to repent of. This was something Steve got. He was eager to take this on. When they met the next week, Steve's list was several legal pages long. Bishop Barris explained that Steve would need to ask God for forgiveness, and he would need to make restitution. For instance, Steve had once pulled up to the stands where golfers leave their clubs on golf courses and loaded a set into his truck and drove off. He still had the owner's name tag. He called the owner, explained what he did, apologized, and offered to pay for the clubs. Stolen golf clubs, pilfered 8-track tapes, and purloined belts, those were the easy things to make right. Some things were more abstract. Some things were mortifying. Steve called or visited every single person on his list. He repented for every single transgression he could recall. The response was consistent. People were not angry. They were moved. It took Steve 6 months. The process was life-altering. Steve was now ready and had a burning desire to serve a mission. He wanted to share the transformation he experienced with others. Phil thought his brother was crazy and needled him regularly. When Steve walked by, Phil fell on his knees, made the sign of the cross, and said, "Forgive me, Padre, for I have sinned," appropriating Catholic piety, not Mormon. The other members of his family didn't get it, but they didn't hassle him. It wouldn't have mattered if they had. Steve was on fire.
Thank you, Kellen, for reading. The sound of your voice reading is truly wonderful. So thank you for saying yes today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to come back to Daniel and give Daniel the opportunity to see if there's something present for you that you'd like to share from today's reading.
Yes. Thank you.
welcome.
Agreed, Kellen. That was amazing reading. Your voice is phenomenal. And yeah, this chapter, it means a lot for me in a way. Two pieces come to me about that. One is I grew up, I think agnostic would be the best way of putting it. I was hedging my bets just in case, a little bit of fear, but maybe bordered on atheist, because it always seemed to me weird that everybody would choose a religion, or they didn't choose a religion, they just followed. It seemed like such a big choice, but that you just fall into it because that's what your parents were into. So I was pretty opposed to it. I think I went to church 4 times in my first 18 years. Nonetheless, in my last couple of years of high school, my very best friend, to whom I got really close, was Mormon. And he and his family were really devoted to their devoutness. And so I spent a lot of time with him and with his family, and I never felt any pressure from them. Yet, of course, their faith was so clear and obvious to them, and I recognized that in my family, which my parents were ex-Catholics, they'd given up on the whole thing. There was so much dysfunction in my own family and pain that what I saw in his family was beautiful and sweet and loving. And I knew that I craved that, and I appreciated that. And so even though he and I had really different experiences related to religion, we were both really philosophical. So we had lots and lots of deep conversations about the universe, God, and it was really super special to me. And interestingly, we both went off to our first year in college and stayed connected through that. But then the next year he went off to his mission. And shortly after that, I went into the Grateful Dead and psychedelics. And somehow it felt like our paths went really far apart. And we never really connected much again after that. And it was only a few years later, maybe 3 years later, I had the experience. I still had the same stance about religion. I didn't know there was something called spirituality at that point. Yet I had this really huge experience where God, which was not a word I could have used at that point, reached down and grabbed me by the hair, which was on my head, not my chin at that point, lifted me up and said, "There's a whole lot to the world that you have not been seeing." And it was incredibly powerful and beautiful. And I tasted oneness and human potential. And I went right past from not believing, past believing, to knowing that there is a higher power, whatever name we put on it. And it was a radical life change for me, changed everything. So I thought of my friend Brad many times after that, and only reconnected with him a few years ago. So I don't know, the idea of finding religion, finding God was, it was a really pivotal aspect of my own journey and changed my life a lot. So yeah, I really appreciate and love this chapter, though I lament that it's so short, because I feel like we're going to be done in a minute and I want to hang out with y'all longer. But that's enough for me to say, so I will pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for your sharing. All right, Mr. Jeremy.
All right.
Hi.
So, this chapter, I try to put myself into it and think about when these situations happened to me, when I found God, and how it was kind of similar in the fact that it was a drastic change in my life. and how I could relate how Steve's heart was softened. His heart was softened, and he felt God, and his mind was open. And he also had these. He cut his hair, quit drinking. He had like these outward changes because what was happening inside of him, and I could really relate with that because that's what happened with me. I knew that. Like physically, I used to just kind of like be sad and like walk with my head down. I knew to like, I felt like I was called by God, and, it wasn't just for me. It was like the things that I had been through that I could help other people, that have kind of been through that. And, I could kind of relate with some of these things that were said in here. And, it kind of keeps inspiring, think about, as a result of reading this, or as a result of, get something out of this chapter. It's like, to be an example is, something that I inspired to be, to implement the things that I've learned. And yeah, so to represent, to represent my, my religion, to represent Jesus, and to, I may be the person that could, shed a good light, on what I believe in, and let my actions speak louder than my words. And so my words will hold weight, and understand that integrity means a lot, So that's this chapter meant a lot to me. And I do want to say that whenever Steve went to a mission, I did something similar. So when I dedicated 1 year of my life to a mission called Master's Commission. And it was like a Christian thing that kind of modeled the Mormon, where it's like you give a year of your life and dedicate it to God and try to get more people to know him. And so that was a similar thing that I did. And I did that in Austin, Texas for a year. And then right out of high school. And then I went back to my city after that. And and I'm still in my religion. I'm still following, trying to be closer to that. But back then it was like this God there, and I needed saving. Now it's like, the God that's inside of me, and trying to figure that out, and trying to let that shine more. So that's where I'm at. And thank you,
Jeremy.
Tanya, for giving me an opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for saying yes to reading, and thank you for sharing. I'd love to bring it back to Kellen. Kellen, would you like to share with us what today's reading or what this chapter means to you?
Well, so there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. I was raised as a member of the same church that Steve was. And so I went to seminary. And all the stuff that is described in there, I understand that experience. What was wildly different and what I thought about as I read the chapter ahead of time before, coming to read, is I didn't have a experience at that time that led me to a life of devotion, dedication like Steve did. My relationship with myself wasn't confident or healthy enough to do any of that. I was in and out of the church for decades. And I lived a life that was pursuit of wealth and career and that sort of thing, and achieved that in great measure for decades, literally decades. When I was 52, I finally had a divine intervention, but the setup wasn't a teacher who called me in the hallway or a bishop that called me in the office. It was, at the time it was 52, I was a $3,000 a week cocaine addict, and I was making so much money that didn't matter. And I had a divine intervention that I didn't have anyone in my life that would have been able or who did come to that place. And I had a set of extraordinary experiences in August of 2007, which called attention to the opportunity to change. And the story's kind of long, so I don't think there's probably not enough time to share that now, but it was a series of extraordinary events that abruptly changed everything. I quit everything I was doing. I left the career that I was in and started life all over again in August and September of 2007. Since that, and what it demonstrates to me is, we all call God by whatever name we call him, and see him and perceive that entity and power that we all know is there. But what it demonstrates to me is I always sort of think of myself. I had been married and divorced 3 times. I'd attempted suicide twice. I had been in and out of rehab and very, very successful financially and career-wise. But it was a wreck personally. And even in that place, I sort of, as a not funny but funny description, say to myself, well, if there was ever a poster boy of somebody that should have been left at the bottom of the canyon, I was it. And even in that time, the divine saw fit to issue the invitation that was noisy enough and loud enough, and the 2x4s were big enough upside the head to wake me up. And I left everything and literally walked away from millions of dollars of contracts and started all over again. With no idea how I was going to do it or where I was going to go, but accepting the invitation. And in the years since then, and that was 16 years ago, August of 2007. And what I know from that, I've created the business that I have, a coaching practice, and written a bunch of books, and have all the stuff that I talked about earlier podcasts and messages and shows and everything else. But what it really shows me that's tender and dear to my heart is it doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter what's happened before. The Creator, who created and assigned and gave and loves the divine in me and each of us, will extend the invitation. And my thought when I meet anybody, wherever they are, is if the way I was and what I'd been through was worth the invitation, then it's for anybody. Because the life where I was as bad as I can imagine. And it is precious as each of you are, and I am. And so it makes me know and reaffirm every breath the mission purpose that I live and breathe, which is as on fire and devoted as we left Steve at the closing sentence of that chapter. So because of the actual and then other similarities, those are the things that went through my mind some of the things that went through my mind as I read the chapter for you tonight.
Thank you, Kellen. What's so profound that I heard is when you said, if doing the things I did, and he still found me and gave you grace upon that. May I ask, what was it within you that then accepted it? That like you accepted that gift?
I'd struggled with depression for 35 years, and that my form was just knowing that I wasn't good enough, didn't deserve anything, and that all the bad stuff that was in my life was all my fault. And that was despite the fact that I had more money than I knew what to do with. That was it. I mean, I knew how to make money, but I didn't know how to be a person. And the thing that happened was just an abrupt call, a focus, a period of focus on the suffering that I had both caused and experienced in my life in an extraordinary way that I'd have to tell the whole story to paint the picture. But the invitation was just a profound statement that it was enough. It is enough, in the voice of the divine that literally shook the walls. It is enough. And not a threat, but an observation. And it made me know that this was an invitation to change. And we all get those inspirations all the time, and I ignored them or half-heartedly done them, but let the voice inside of me that said I wasn't good enough always win. And this time I said, well, I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know how to do this. I don't know where to start. I don't know any of that crap, but I don't need to. What I know is we're done with that. That's what I know. We're done with that. And so I quit. I mean, like one day, cold turkey, straight up. And that got me sober. And then there were a couple of other miracles that took place that pointed me in the direction of the help I needed to get, to learn to talk to people, learn how to tell the truth, which I'd never done, to learn how to be a person, which I'd never done. It was the 2 weeks before this event when I attempted suicide, I remember coming home. I was a big shot consultant, wear 3-piece Armani suits and all that jazz. And I remember coming home and saying, I can be anybody you need me to be. Tell me what the score is, tell me what the game is, and I can win. And when I get home and turn out the lights, I don't have a flippin' clue who I am. And it was that, and my favorite phrase was, I just want to be unconscious. I just want to be unconscious. And in that state of living like that, and then for years, the sense that there was the God that said it is enough, which meant implicit there is an opportunity. It was breathtaking, it was frightening, it was enlightening, all at the same time. And it was powerful enough that even not having a clue as what to do, I just knew, okay, that is finished, and we're going to go in a new direction. I don't know where it goes. We're going that way. And that's it. And I had to figure all the pieces out as I went along. And, I had been ostracized from my family and on and on and on. And none of that's a sob story. It just is what it is. And like I said, I think the noise was so loud because I was alone. And then I wasn't, because the second part of the divine intervention was allowing me not to be alone anymore, which is another whole piece of the story. I don't want to monopolize the whole thing, so I can talk for a couple of hours without even breathing hard. So I'll just stop.
Well, I really just want to honor you in this moment and acknowledge you for accepting the gift and for receiving another chance and taking action through your commitment. It seems like through that commitment, then it led you to the next steps to be taken, to where then you weren't alone and the right people became or showed up on your path to support you and guide you and lead you into the most profound calling that you are now taking action on, and sharing and spreading love and guide such an immense light in the world, touching millions of people across the world. So I really want to acknowledge you for the action that you have taken since. I really do honor you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
My heart is really touched for your authentic sharing and sharing your story and the depths of it that you have shared. It really gives me hope and light. So thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, I would love to open it up to the community. And so if there's anyone that would like to share, please raise your electronic hand. And I'd love to call on you and to share. Mr. Dave Orton,
Thank you.
hi, welcome.
Thank you. I so much, so love and appreciate you. Alan, thank you for reading this. It's funny because all the Flukigers I know aside from you are Mormon. And so it's, when I came across your name, I'm like, that's an interesting name. I love that. So Penny and I come from this the same religion, and we still practice it, and we're fifth generation Mormons. I grew up in Rexburg, Idaho, which is like just behind Salt Lake City, Utah, or Provo, Utah, as a very, very, very concentrated population of Mormons, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And what I noticed, what resonated with me in this book reading was that for me, strangely enough, so I went to seminary, just like Kellen did, just like Steve did. And for me, the thing that made the biggest difference was discovering for myself my relationship with the divine. And had a near-death experience at age 14 before I went into seminary that convinced me that I was very special. And that was not exactly helpful, strangely enough, in my relationship with the divine. I knew the divine, touched it, felt it, tasted the peace and love of that, but it was not, it was in a way that was serving me, but not others. And I really want to share what's happened with my relationship with the divine since The Ultimate Coach has come out and since I've been involved in this community. Because the way that I related to God, the way that I related to the divine, the way I even related to my religion and the organization thereof was very much crafted by the culture in which I grew up, and not so much from my own discovery, my own belief, my own experience of the divine. And it used to be that I would pray to a God that was out there somewhere, send a long distance phone call or a long distance letter. And now it's an abiding with, being with, be with session, like with Steve, except it's with my God. And I see this divine spark in everyone that I talk with. And I love that one, the one that we are, the self with a capital S that we are. My document, I say I'm made of love. And that's a kind of a code word for I'm made of God. And I am so grateful for that. I've got on my thing here these little statements that have been with me since December of last year, when I discovered there's nothing I could do that would make me unworthy of the love of God. There's nothing I could do that would make me unworthy of my own love toward myself, and there's nothing that any of you could do as a possibility that would make anyone unworthy of my love. And I'm working on, I have judgments on people sometimes. I love the people of Russia. I'm not a huge fan of what Putin's doing right now. So to love the unlovable, to see the divine in everyone, including people that occur to me or have occurred to me as enemies, is a powerful and sacred thing. And when I say I love you, and I say that a lot, I mean that the divine in me adores, sees, acknowledges, blesses the divine in you. And that's what I'd love to share. Thank you again, Kellen, for reading. I love you, brother.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for sharing. Terry. Hi, Terry.
Hello,
Hi, thank you for joining us tonight.
welcome. And I'm so welcome to that I'm so glad that I'm here. It was just what I needed today. It's almost 9 months since I lost love of my life. And we were both very spiritual. I continue to be very spiritual, more spiritual than religious. And every day since he died, there is something that is brought to me. And today I was thrilled to see that this was the chapter we were reading. And I've been baby step by baby step, moving forward, not moving on, moving forward. I will always love and miss my husband. And so today, as I said, baby step by baby step, it's getting better, but there is so much adrenaline going through my body, like every day since then. And I was listening to something else of it's a person who did a keynote at Camp Widow, which is for widows and widowers. And I was listening to him today, and he was talking about the fact that when he lost his love, that he was not broken, but shattered. And that's the way I often feel. But it is baby step by baby step. And every single day, I am brought something from God that shows me that we're all one. And it was just, I had not seen this chapter, and I've been to a lot of these meetings, but I had not seen this one today before. And I did not know his story. And just wanted to say that I love it. And we are all one. And my husband gave a speech once talking about the fact that God is love. And I will just end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for being here. My love is with you at all times. And you're right. You're never alone. Gurpreet, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here. Gosh, I really miss these book readings. I missed 2 Sundays before. Today I had to sit down with my notebook. I had to run and actually grab my notebook because I just had a series of flashbacks of moments that just flew me into my past and showed the trajectory of how my relationship with God has evolved. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get emotional. That's okay. So when I was born, obviously, and some of you already know this, I was always, a less than child because I was a girl, or I am a girl. And so my mom told me this, and I would be heartbroken. And my mom told me, I remember I was very, very young, and my mom said, I would say, Mom, this is not fair. It hurts. And, and Mom would say, just talk to God. And I'm like, what? She's like, just talk to God. God is everything. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, God is not my father. Like, my father treats me like that. And she's like, no, God is your father. God is your mother. God is your lover. God is your friend. God is everything. So don't talk to me because that's not going to help. I can't do anything, but go talk to God. I was like, okay. And I believed her words 100%. And I remember I was 6 years old when my dad had a fight with his brother. in the house. We used to live in a joint family, like 40 people in the house, big house. And I used to wear this locket where I had a picture of our guru, our God. And I took that off my neck and I said, well, I thought you were all about love. Why is this happening in my house? That is my first memory of a shock when I experienced super painful moment. But then I saw how my relationship evolved, because I would fight with God all the time. I would he became my lover boy, or when I was a teenager, because I was fat and nobody would look at me, and I'm like, oh, God is there, he's watching me, he's with me. And I'd fight and I'd cry and I'd be everything. And then I had a moment where I lost one of my very, very close friends, best friend. My life stopped at that time. I was 19 years old at the time, and I stopped talking to everybody. I actually went in shock. And I just told my dad, I don't want to do anything. I just want to meditate. I just want to connect with my God. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk. Just give me the food in the room. I don't want to come out. And I literally sat down and I would just talk to God. 6 months it took me to get out of that room. I'd seen how the death had happened. It shook me from inside. And then another moment where I got an opportunity to connect at a deeper level was when I came to US. I was all alone by myself, didn't know a soul here. And I would question, why did you bring me here? It was my dad's dream to come to US. It wasn't mine. But I was always a good girl, listening to dad. So I came here and I was like, why did you bring me here? Why did you not let my visa be just rejected? Why did you do this to me? And I would just be fighting and talking and fighting and talking and loving and just sharing my heart. And later in life I realized that I always, like Dave said, I always felt like God was outside of me. And I felt like this pain, always this pain of, why am I separate from you? And I remember I would just cry in car, driving back and forth, just feeling the pain of separation. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Just connect me back. I just want to be with you. And then came a moment when he showed me that I was always connected. I was never away. He was never away, never outside of me. And it was just my thought process, that I was trained that way. I was programmed by the religion, by the culture to believe that, which was not true. And the funny thing started happening whenever any religious teacher would say anything to me, or I would hear it, I would hear a voice tell me, that's not true. Don't believe that. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Just started having these amazing experiences. And I would hear God tell me, like, no, I'm right here with you. And it has only gotten better when I separated my connection with God from the religion. Like, I just didn't think that God was about religion as much. And I started directing myself more towards my spirituality, where now it was more about just divine in me. And there's no other, baggage or no other burden. And not that religion is bad. My religion never preached anything wrong, or anybody's religion. I don't think they do. But I think my biggest catch was I was so carried with the burden of, how can I not be so sinful? Because these religious preachers always made me believe that I was so sinful that God would never forgive me for who I am, or forgive me that I'm a girl, or forgive me that, I don't meditate 24/7 ever since I've been born. So I had to learn to separate myself from that burden. And that's when I found the real connection that I have with my God. And I'm so grateful to this book because I never, ever looked at my journey or my relationship with God this way ever before. So thank you for this space. I'm super grateful.
Thank you, Gurpreet, for sharing. Really, thank you so much for being here and sharing your heart with us. Oh, my heart is opening so wide right now for each and every beautiful face I see in front of me. Andrea, I see your hand up, sweetheart. Would you like to share?
I think my son was first.
Okay. Misan?
Hi, hello everyone.
Hi, welcome.
I just wanted to share some of my experience in my teenagers. I can relate a lot with this chapter. Well, my parents left us when I was 6. I grew up with my siblings, and when they left the house, I moved relatives' house here and there. I never felt like I was welcomed or accepted by my relatives completely. So I remember that first time I was thinking about I want to die. I don't want to live like that. It was when I was 10 in my grandma's house. Yeah, that was it. Since then, I think that was the only thing I was thinking. And one of my older sister, eventually took me to the city where she lived, because I was almost like really crazy. I was crying in front of her like crazy. I said I don't really want to live with my grandma, and I can't live there. And my sister took me to the city with her, and I went middle school there, and I met one friend who was a minister's daughter. So I started to go to the church since then, and that was like it was a Protestant church, and that was what I heard about God first time. And sounds great. Sounds like he's much better than any of my family member. And I started to pray to save me from where I am. And I almost lived in the church. I came home only for sleeping. And it continued until I graduated high school. I did everything, whatever the church asked. I went to every service, like every day, early morning service. And I lived in the church on weekend. And I went to evening service, and I went to midnight service. I did everything. And even I was engaged the street mission work. I went to the street to talk about Jesus to people when I was a teenager. Well, at the time, I really believed that what the priest taught me, what priest talked, God is only Savior. Well, actually, Jesus can be only Savior. So that was I really believed it completely. So I used to talk to people, even some people really accept what I said. It was an amazing experience. But the thing that priest didn't talk about was God is within me. God is somewhere up there in the heaven, and I'm here as a sinner. So whatever I'm doing, I'm always making mistake. I have to be forgiven. I'm just a sinner. So if I'm not a good girl, God doesn't love me. So that I tried to be a good girl in the church. I did everything what priest said or other people, other adults said. And then in my 20s, I learned more about other things, and I really couldn't accept that anymore. God doesn't love me if I make a mistake. So I stopped going to the church, and I became almost like atheist. I couldn't believe God is that way until I found my spiritual teacher's books. It's David Hawkins. So until I really find that God is everywhere and God is one, different form, God is within me too. We are expression of God. Yeah, I was just struggling about the concept of God, what the Protestant church told me. And I sometimes used to think like, if I meet this kind of a book, this kind of people in my teenagers, how my life would be different. But you know, I'm really grateful that I went through all the journey, and eventually I found the truth, absolute truth. And this book and this group, all of you, really feels like I'm home. I finally found right place, right people. And so I'm so grateful for everything and everyone in this group. Thank you so much. I'm complete.
Thank you, Misan. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight and being with us. I would like to come back to Andrea. Andrea, where are you? I don't see you. There you are. Hi.
Thank you for all the readers and all the shares. Yeah, I also had a near-death experience, 2009, and that was what Kellen was talking about. It just brought that back. That was probably my first real encounter or real experience of the divine speaking to me. And so at the end of this experience, which I told Martin all my regrets, and at the end of it, I heard a voice tell me, basically, stop dicking around, stop messing around, stop wasting time, and do what you love. That was the message at the end that I heard. It was just so clear. It was just stop doing what you've been doing, and living a regretful life. and you don't have to do that anymore. So stop messing around. And so it was like, wow, okay, there's a reason why I'm here. And a couple weeks later, I started blurting out stuff that I didn't know it was coming through. It was coming through me more or less. And I said something about coaching, and I didn't know what coaching was at the time. And I Googled it, and then I ended up hiring a coach and getting a coaching certification and all that training. And yeah, it's sort of, I got called into it in a funny way. I stumbled on it, and but divine was speaking through me. And I also had experiences, encounters after I had 3 miscarriages and depression, and I had experiences hearing well, just getting messages from the other side, from my three angels and stuff. So yeah, I was going through depression, and I still got messages from the other side, really a strong connection with spirit. And my mom passed away a year ago, and I have a really strong connection with spirit, and getting dreams and messages. And wow, I had a dream, and Jesus was in the bedroom, like I actually felt his presence, and it was like I woke up and I like grabbed Martin's arm, and I was startled, right? But it was so real. And yeah, so I really am trusting it, and knowing that it's a part of all of us, and it's always there. It's always there, and we just need to tune in and drop in and trust it. So I'm surrendering more and more and more and more. And so the book, yeah, just coming to the book, 2 years now that I've been with the book, and yeah, just miracle keeps unfolding. And I got just the way I got to go to Phoenix, to London, to Mumbai, and everything has been a miracle. And yesterday was my birthday. Steve talks about quality time remaining, and so I got really reflective, and it was like, oh, okay, so you're 57 now in whatever human years, and I multiplied it by 365, so that means I've lived 20,805 days so far that I've lived. And then if I live to 88, then I've got 11,315 days left. So that was like, whoa, okay, what am I going to do with that? It really is about quality time remaining, and that I'm serving, that I'm here to serve and surrender myself, so that I can hear the guidance and yeah, just get over myself and really serve. So is it okay if I share a little bit of my document, or should I let other people go, Tanya? Yeah.
If you could stay on for the after party and share your document, that would be
Sure.
wonderful, because I would like to get to
Yes.
everyone that has raised their hand to
course.
share. Wonderful.
course.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
invite you
Thank
to
you.
stay. And thank you so much for stepping into service for the Ultimate Coach community. You serve us in a very large way through your love and your light. So thank you for your presence. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Miss Fadi. Hello, darling.
Hello, darling. Talking about God, what a sensitive subject this is for me. Being that Persian girl, being that bad girl because I was from the Middle East, and with all the mess that it was going in Iran when I left Iran and I was in England and America, and have that badge on me that I am that Middle Eastern, therefore I'm a piece of shit and I need to die because I come from where I come. It created a tremendous amount of anger, frustration, depression, hatred for God, 1000% for religion at that time. Hating to come from a Muslim background. I didn't choose that. I was born there. Hating God for making me come amongst the Muslim family that now the Iranians are butchering the world, and I have to pay the price for it. So I just started being built on hate, depression, more anger, more frustration. And it brought me to want to take my life many, many times. Many, many times. Throughout made me realize God has nothing to do with religion. God has to do with the spirit. Spirituality is something else. And I had a massive car accident. I was the driver from San Francisco, and my best friend was visiting me from London, and she went brain dead because of my drive, which got me to be sued, of course, by her family. And that was when I realized through UCLA that I was ADHD and I'm dyslexic too, which at that time I said, okay, God, I hate you even more. Like, how much more can you fuck up my life? You bring me up in the part of the world that I didn't want to be. Then you bring me so much crap in my life. What is this life worth living for? The only thing that he was always my friend was that I never knew how to do drugs and I never knew how to do alcohol. So my drug was workout, which then became my blessing that it made me become so successful as a fitness trainer and a life coach. And through that, through all those meditation, all those yoga, all that breathing and all of that, when I heard the voice that talked to me, that it literally was not coming from a religion aspect. It was the spirit talking to me that my way is the spirituality and it's not a religious way. And all of that was to get me away from religion and invite me to spirituality. Having said that, I did convert to Christianity in 1997. But to this day, I have not been able to seek God anywhere but through spirituality. Whatever I say, whatever I do, literally has nothing to do with any religion. It all comes from here, my heart. And I totally have reconciled with God in ways that it has made me be the very jolly, loving person that I am today to absolutely everybody. But because of my changes in me, I am another bad wolf that I am always be criticized by my family. I will never be accepted by my family. And that's the way it goes. And amen to that. But this community has brought so much hope so much love, so much stronger belief in the spirituality for me. Looking at Steve, that is so religious, he's so Mormon and Christian, but I also get so much more than that, much higher than that. I get his spirituality. And that's what has embraced my heart, is a heart to heart, is not a religion to my heart, is a heart to heart that I worship this man. I love him. That's what I call him. He's my walking Jesus. People want to get upset on them, but for me, I feel if this door opens and somebody walks and says, I'm Jesus, I don't know him. But if Steve Hardison walks, I see him as that. It brushes my heart in the most loving way when I talk to him or when I hear him. Amy, it's just, even Teresa, she talks, she just says something and I just feel, wow, I get that spirituality out of it. Tanya, all of that, it makes me feel good. This place is home. It's very much of a home. So thanks for all of you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Fadi. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to love and serve our community. Thank you for the work that you're doing on you. Always. I love you. Miss Sonia, welcome.
Hello, I believe Tom was before me. No? Okay,
You're up.
thank you. My heart is beating like 100 miles. I'm just floored that this is the topic that we're talking about, because I have been battling spirituality and religion for just quite some time. And I knew God before I stepped into a church. I didn't grow up in a religious home. We went to church when someone passed or when there was a wedding, Catholic. And my sister died in 2007 at the age of 34. She was my older sister. And she left 3 children behind, my 2 nephews and my niece. And my husband was 24 at the time and I was 30. And my sister always would tell me, if something ever happened to me, I would like for you to have my kids. And I always just kind of like, shut her up. I'm like, why are you talking like this? And when it happened, I just couldn't believe it. It was something that happened. It was very sudden. And here my husband and I are fighting for these children. Dad wasn't in a good place. And we got the children and our life. I didn't even know how to put a kid in school. Now we have 3 teenagers. One's disabled. One's trying to commit suicide. I have all 3 children in counseling. And I have my little girl that we just had that was 12 months old. And my life was spinning before me. And there was really no one to help. My mom, or there was just nobody there to help. So my husband and I just buckled down and we did what we had to do. And then it was just an ordinary day where the kids were at school and I had my daughter, and I had this spiritual experience that hit me out of nowhere. I wasn't on my hands and knees, surrendering, praying for God's help. I wasn't there yet. But I felt what I felt God, and I heard, I'm so proud of you. 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 And my body was filled with chills from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And I felt the most pure joy that I've never felt. What joy. I knew what happiness felt like, but not joy and peace and this unconditional love. And I started crying and got down, crying to my knees. I felt that it was my sister. Really, I felt that it was my sister. I felt that it was her. I felt that it was her. after the experience, I went looking for God because that's the only thing that I know could explain that. So where do you go looking for God at? Church. So I ended up finding a church and became very religious. I started reading the Bible front to back. I took an entire year off and was just reading the Bible and learning. And then there was a shift when I was reading the Bible, and there was something, the God that I felt before was telling me that the truth, there was some misleading information in the Bible. And when I felt that, and when I heard that, I got so confused. And I felt sick to my stomach because I thought I was going to be hit by a bolt of lightning, because now I'm questioning. And I go into my church and they tell me that the enemy is trying to confuse me because I'm recruiting so many people for this church. And even till now, when I started with the Ultimate Coach, I started reading the book, and I started to hear, and I started to feel, and things started to feel familiar again. And I started to see the difference, and I became more spiritual. Like I was already going towards that path because of the questioning, because what I heard. But it's almost like it's an ongoing battle, because I love going to church. But then when I step into the church, it's almost like I tend to confuse myself. And at times walk out feeling shame and feeling guilt. And then I have to come home and go within and pray to the God that I met before I stepped into church. And then in the Bible, it states that card reading and nonprofit, or just what is it? Nonprofits, I'm hearing all this stuff, and I'm meeting all these amazing people that read cards and do different forms of spirituality. And I'm feeling like scared, like, should I even be okay with this? Because the religious side of me takes over. But then God's like, how does it feel? How does it feel? How do they make you, how does it feel? Does it feel pure? Does it feel good? Does it feel, and it's just so confusing, the conditioning and everything. And it's like my world is expanding with all these beautiful, amazing people that do different things, that serve in different ways for God. But in the Bible, it says it's not right, that it's evil, that it's bad to step away, that yoga and Kundalini and all this other stuff is bad. But it doesn't feel bad. It feels right. And I see what it's doing for people. And so, listening to all your stories and hearing your hearts just confirms that the God within is the right way to go. And just to center and go within and be love. My religion is love, and God is love. And I am complete. Thank you all. I appreciate every one of you. Love you.
Love you too, Sonia. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. You arrived right on time, baby doll. Mr. Tom Lipinski.
There we go. Sonia, thank you for saying that you're hearing our hearts, because you can. I strongly believe that I listen from my heart. I make decisions from my heart. I talk from my heart. So for me, I have actually forgot. I've read the book twice. I've been this is my third year in this book reading, and I barely remembered this chapter. And before we started, I looked at it, and it was, 2 pages, 3 pages. And I'm thinking, oh, short page or short chapter. And then even after, even after Kellen read it, I wasn't really present to what I'm present to right now. It took me hearing all of you. I have a friend in Florida that I talk to every once in a while, and she says one never knows, meaning one never knows what people are dealing with. And I heard these amazing stories tonight. So I'll go fast here. My relationship with God has evolved so many ways. I went to 12 years of Catholic school and had to go to church every day in high school. And, my relationship with God was, in church, drifting off, thinking about other things, not paying attention, skipping out as much as I could. As I got older, it was, hanging out in the back of the church with friends. And then my mom died at 19. I was 19 and she died. And, it was like, I was mad at God. It's like, why would you do this? So I kind of think I put God completely out of my life. I had a cavalier attitude towards God. And then it even took a turn in the wrong direction. In 2005, I did the Landmark Forum. A lot of you have done that. And I got that everything's invented. So we've invented God. All right, proof, no God. This just all was random and it just happened. But the beautiful thing is, over the last few years, I started seeing beauty everywhere. I would see beauty in trees, and then I started seeing beauty in telephone poles and cars, and it started bringing God back to me. And then being in this group has completely brought it back to me. I have a line in my document. I've recited it to some of you, and it says, I'm clear that God has created this infinite world I share with you. And to me, it's like there is absolutely no way that I live in this world without a God. God is there. So my God is, I think, Farah, you said it, is more of a spiritual God than a religious God. But I am really clear that there is a God. So, and I love my God, and I love all of you. And, I'm always so happy for being in this space. And I don't know where Dave and Daniel went, but he started us off, and everybody just kept on sharing to the point where I just had to share, so you guys did it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for all of the beautiful shares tonight. What I'm so present with is what I've heard share from multiple people is really, it's the God within. And I would love to even share from our last season. I was actually nominated to read this chapter last season, and I was in denial. I was like, I'm not qualified. I kept saying, I'm not qualified. I felt I wasn't qualified. I tried to reach out to other religious leaders and such that I know, and to ask them if they would read, because I really didn't feel qualified, because there are so many broken pieces in my life. And it was like picking up these broken pieces in my life and trying to put them back together, and thinking that because I had these broken pieces, I wasn't qualified. And I was really faced with something immediately after the reading. I had joined my family at a Renaissance festival, and it was a moment for me, because when I arrived, I was judged, and I was offended. by my husband, and it really hurt me, and it got us into an argument. And so he judged me, and then I judged him. And everywhere I turned, I was seeing people with horns on their head, and like they were dressed for the occasion because that was the event. But for me, coming out of this chapter, finding God, it was everywhere I looked, it looked different. And I found myself judging. And so it was really a moment of introspection and deep, deep introspection that I really gave myself permission to go deeper, to be with what does finding God mean to me. And I judged myself for judging people, and because I was so present with it. And I really recognized that if God is unconditional, then what does it look like to be unconditional love to myself, to my husband, to my children? And so it really gave me a sense of, who am I? And why am I disqualifying myself to be a child of God? Why am I disqualifying myself to even just read a chapter? Why am I disqualifying myself and judging myself from my past mistakes that's taken me out of where I actually feel my heart being called? And so I will say that this, having the ultimate coach in my life, and with the questions in the back of the book and the questions in before you begin, allowing self to go deeper. Who do I need to be fully in love with myself? And that's where it starts. Like, who do I need to be unconditional love for me so I can be unconditional love for others? And so it really brought me to the presence of where love is lacking, judgment is created. And how much judgment was I having on myself to where I felt disqualified from anything, even in my marriage, even in being a good parent, a good mom, because of the challenges I've experienced. And so I really love this chapter. I really, that part where it says Steve was gobsmacked, I felt like reading this chapter last season, I was gobsmacked, because it really kind of woke me up, and it influenced me to go deeper. I had to go deeper. And what I've experienced ever since since I've given myself permission to go deeper and to be present with the chatter that's within me, is it unconditional love? And when it wasn't, what was actually more true than that chatter that was no longer serving me into a greater being? And to be with that chatter, actually be present with that chatter. Because if I wasn't, it's like one day I looked out over my yard, and my yard looked really beautiful. And I decided to go take a walk out just to like ground myself. And the closer, when I got in the yard, I realized there was dog poop everywhere. So I was tiptoeing to try to get around the dog poop. And there's a story in the book where it says, like putting frosting on top of dog poop, and with our declaration, who are we declaring ourselves to be? Well, in that judgment, I was thinking of all the faults. I was thinking of all the broken pieces. I wasn't actually declaring myself. I was just putting like frosting on top of dog poop. And so I realized, well, I can keep tiptoeing around it, or I can go and I can actually pick it up. And so I think that that's really what has influenced and increased my relationship with God in this moment, to even shift the way that I talk to him or speak to the universe, instead of speaking from a sense of, I am not worthy. Thank you. I am worthy. Thank you for the blessings, even in the tough times, even in the hard times, even in the mess. Instead of, why is this happening? How is this growing me? What is this teaching me? Thank you for this lesson. Thank you for this blessing. thank you for growing me. And without this experience, I would not know. It wouldn't grow me without this experience. So thank you. And so that has really shifted my relationship with God. I would say that I am very much of a person that leans into music that serves me with good words, that serves me with good spirit. I'm very disciplined in that space. But there was something missing. And what was missing was my own thoughts of myself. Like it was somewhere out there rather than within me. And so that's what's really has improved my relationship in helping me find the God in me. So thank you. Thank you for letting me share as well. At this time, I would love to pass it over to our beautiful Maria. Maria, will you bring us home, and then we'll move into the after party?
I certainly will. Thank you so much. I
you.
want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Team Tuck has been so excited this season to bring you exciting and meaningful times here. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with all of us together as a community. It's very important to me, and I can't stand it when I miss one of these. So thank you all for being here. And it's because of you. I learned a lot from reading from the book myself, but I think I learned almost as much from listening to other people share. And I love that. And thank you for challenging my thinking, all of you. So today I have a few things I wanted to say thank you to our readers. Let's see, we had Daniel Aaron, he read the back of the book for us. And Jeremy, thank you so much for reading the front of the book for us and also for sharing. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to Kellum. I'm going to say this right. Flukiger, is that right? Did I get it right, team? Flukiger. All right. Thank you. And I just wanted to thank Team Tuck as well for all the work that you're doing to bring this together. We have about 3 meetings a week. You don't only have to come to one, but we do spend a lot of time really thinking about how we can serve you. So thank you. Thank you for giving us that opportunity to serve. All right, so we have a reading event coming up this Sunday, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, EDT, right? Make sure you check your own time zone. And thank goodness it's EDT for me, because anybody who's ever contacted me from around the world knows I can never get it right. I'm always early or the day after, or so check that out and make sure you know what time if you've not been here before for that one. And we're going to read chapter number 6, which is Gainfully Employed. So that should be really wonderful. And you maybe take the time to read it this week before we get there. It's not long really either. So I've found that for me, that has been helpful to read it beforehand and then hear somebody else like read it back to you. For me, that's amazing. All right, so I want to remind you that we have a couple of events coming up this year. We have the Ultimate Experience in Scottsdale. It's the 2-year anniversary, and that's on January 26th and 27th. And if you haven't gotten your tickets and you're interested in more information, please type yes in the chat. Yeah, yes to I need more information, or how can I find the information? And somebody from the team will get back to you on that one. And also the same for the Birmingham event. So exciting. 2 days in England with the most amazing people on the planet. I think that's just amazing. I was thinking the other day, I can't imagine walking in a room and like all of you being there live. Like, who would I hug first, right? Who do you hug first? Anyway, so really excited about the Birmingham event. And that's, of course, May 25th and 26th, 2024. All right, so definitely if you haven't gotten your tickets or you want more information, again, put yes in the chat and we'll get back to you, get you going in the right direction. All right, there's lots of ways to connect, and I don't know if we knew, I didn't know about all of these, honestly, until the moderator read them for me, and that was all the places that the Ultimate Coach is like sticking its beautiful little roots out. And one of those places is, of course, the YouTube channel. If you haven't caught the Ultimate Coach YouTube channel, fabulous. And of course, the podcasts. It's what I do when I do dishes. I put on a podcast so I don't have to think about my hands in dirty water. And then there's also the Ultimate Coach IG and the LinkedIn group, Bringing Being into Business. And the Ultimate Coach weekly Being Digest letter with upcoming events in your news feed. In your email feed. So definitely can pick up that. If you haven't signed up for that, you can go to the Ultimate Coach group and you'll find the information there on how to sign up. Let's see, gosh, if there's anything else that we can do to serve you, please contact us. Any of us. We are so willing to listen and hear what you as a community want and need. And so please contact us with any concerns or anything that you would like to share. So now I want to invite you to our after party. And that comes up right after this meeting. And we will all be there to share. You can share if something else is coming up for you since we've, stopped sharing, so to speak. So stay after for that. Okay, and I guess now the last thing to do is to wish everybody love and hugs. So I'm going to ask you to please unmute yourself. All right. And you can say good morning, goodbye, whatever time of day it is for you. And blessing and love to you all. I love you all. Thank you so much for being my community.
Love everybody.
I love you all.
Love you all. Love you.
Goodbye.
Everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Everyone for joining.
Bye, everyone.
Yes. And those who are staying, let's go to the after party. I'm excited. Yay.